speaking of Joe Flacco and going back to what he did last season, and then the Browns don't keep him, they bring in Jameis Winston, and Jameis Winston shows up like he hasn't shown up in years. I know he hasn't had a lot of opportunities, but now after the game, he's talking about, I had to make the best of this opportunity. I got this opportunity. This is the quarterback I wanted last year to replace Zach Wilson. Now, I didn't know what I was going to get out of him or what the Jets were going to get out of him.
Did you watch the game, though?
Anything was better than Zach Wilson.
Did you watch the game, though?
Which one?
The Browns and Ravens.
Oh, no, I didn't see the game. Well, I just saw the numbers.
Truth is, he did have some nice plays, but it's also true that he should have had 4 interceptions. The Ravens DBs just couldn't hang on to the ball.
and that's what his problem was in the past.
Especially on that last drive before the touchdown, Hamilton, he overthrew his receiver by like 3 yards, and it was right there. It wasn't even a hard pass. He kind of put too much air under it, and it went over the receivers' heads, and Hamilton had it right in his hands. Couldn't hang on to it. Yeah. So, Jameson, his numbers look decent. He did throw the winning touchdown.
But you have to watch the game.
He should have had 4 interceptions.
And you know, and that was his problem and has been his problem since he's been in the league with the interceptions. But looking at the overall numbers, maybe this also gives him confidence. But you think a guy that has been in the league this long, a former number 1 pick overall, you know, there should be some confidence there anyway, being the professional.
He looked better than Watson for sure. So,
I think anybody would have been better than Watson. I think Zach Wilson might have been better than Watson. Watson just isn't a good quarterback anymore, and he's trending downward, and he's probably not going to be with the team after the season. I don't know if there's some kind of provision in the contract, so when if he gets injured, what's going to happen money-wise, because it is a guaranteed contract, a fully guaranteed. You know there were counsel available for both the Browns and for him in terms of his agent, that they would go through this like a fine-tooth comb, figuring out these things and the pros and cons. And with that kind of money at stake, of course. And now they're acting like there is some big issue, which they probably are in. But then you hear some kind of optimism, at least from people who are in Cleveland, talking about now that he's injured, there may be something different to it. But going back to Jameis Winston, I'm just glad, even if it's the numbers that you look at in the game that you watch are kind of different, but they just ended up being those numbers. I'm still thinking he has the talent to not be anything special in the NFL, because we see a lot of quarterbacks now who aren't special, but I think he can be good or even decent, just decent. Joe Flacco is decent. Joe Flacco at this age is decent. Jameis Winston, I think, can do a lot of what Joe Flacco did. He doesn't run a lot. People think that he runs. He doesn't. He wasn't a runner at Florida State, not much. He's not much of a runner now for the opportunities he gets, but he can still, and the interceptions I know may be a problem. And if they did drop those interceptions that they did have, you know, that's still part of the initial issue that he had once had. But I still go back to when John Gruden talked about him years ago when he first came out. John Gruden had his whiteboard and video that he had taken the quarterbacks on. And he said that Jameis Winston at that time was the smartest quarterback he had ever dealt with. And this is going into the draft. Marcus Mariota was the other quarterback, and people acting like there was an option between the two. It turns out being Jameis Winston, and I'm thinking that all of this cerebral energy was going to be a factor, and he does what he does with the interceptions. And then he continues to throw the interceptions even after his rookie year, and he never really got it back on time. And I would look back at John Gruden wondering, this is the former quarterback guru, the offensive mind everybody wanted. And now you look at him in the past, like, was he really that good after all? Is his analysis or does his opinion really hold that much weight when you see how Jameis Winston played? And I mean, and the way he hasn't been coaching himself or the teams he's coached not playing well.
Well, just because his arm isn't accurate doesn't mean he's not smart. Like, maybe he sees the right guy to throw to, but he just can't.
You know what? And that's true. I'm talking about, I know as far as the accuracy and the arm, but being able to read the defense and throwing those passes to players who are right there, they're not making plays. He's throwing it to them as if they're teammates. That's, I mean, you would think that it takes some type of acuity to even get that most basic part of the game correct. Playing catch with your teammate, he just happens to have another color, and he's taking it for a pick six. Jameis Winston, I'm not saying I still think he's a decent quarterback or has a chance at being a decent quarterback, at least for this weekend he is. And, you know, talking after the game, he talked about how he just needed that opportunity. He couldn't blow it. Now we get to see, is he going to be inconsistent coming into next week's game, or are we going to get a lot of what we know Jameis Winston to be, the pickoff machine? Last week he had a somewhat of a chance, completed like 5 of 10, so that wasn't looking good, but he did get a touchdown. But he got full time work this time. Let's see how it goes with that.
I think when they watch the tape, they're gonna be like, Jameis, we won the game. However, you have to watch your throws because you got away with some. I mean, it was at least 3, if not 4.
Because when
that
I
should
looked
have
at
been
this,
picked. And how many times are you gonna throw that many balls that should be picked that don't get picked? I think yesterday was a one-off. If he throws 4 passes to the other team next week, it's a good chance at least 3 of them are getting caught.
Yeah, and that's if he does it again. Hopefully he learns from it. But at this point in his career, those things shouldn't be as difficult to decipher as they were years ago when you were still considered a young player. But and I was watching the game from the phone, just looking at the scores and seeing how things are going. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm still thinking that, Baltimore's going to come back. You just think that because, Lamar's out there, Derrick Henry's out there, Derrick Henry's still doing what he's doing. And you just think that it's going to finally happen, that, they're just going to get ahead, or they get themselves in a position. Even if they don't get the blowout, they still get the win. And it just didn't happen. And then Jameis Winston, at least for this game, is the hero of the game. And
it was a very weird game. I believe there was like a minute 30 left in the half, and Ravens had the ball. They're trying to go down, maybe at least get a field goal. Lamar scrambled, got away, and he hits Bateman, who starts to fall down, and the ball hits him in the face mask. But the closest guy was like 7 yards away, and it would have been like a good 35-yard gain. Instead, they had to punt. They don't score, and they probably needed those 3 points at the end yesterday.